Good afternoon. Can I have your attention? I'll be doing the second announcement about the health and safety and emergency. We are inside the sports center at the Nelson Mandela University. In case of an emergency, the sound of the alarm would be activated. You don't panic, you don't run, you just look for the emergency door. We've got 4 in the hall. On top of each door, there is a sign of exit, a running man and an arrow. You use those doors. You walk calmly outside. At the back of the hall, we've got an emergency assembly point. All of us here, we need to go outside there. There will be emergency coordinators that will assist you. Also, the protection services that will be busy assisting everybody to go outside and evacuate at the back of the hall. Secondly, we do have the ablutions in the hall. On my right-hand side is the females, and then on the left is the male ablutions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Goeiemiddag, dames en heren. Mawene, manene, namanene kazi. Welcome to the 2023 summer graduation season at Nelson Mandela University. Today, we will be celebrating the success of 99 master's graduates and 46 doctorates. This is a reason to celebrate. Could we please request the following? That the audience rise when the academic procession enters the hall and remain standing until after the moment of silence, and again at the end of the ceremony after the national anthem as the academic procession leaves the hall. That you ensure your cell phone is on silent for the duration of the ceremony, but please do tweet using the hashtag MandelaGrad and tell all your family and friends that the event has been live streamed on our YouTube channel. That you do not leave the hall during proceedings out of respect for our graduates and their families who have worked very hard to achieve their qualifications. Should you need to use the restroom, may we request that you do not walk in front of the stage as it interferes with the photographer. We encourage celebration. However, out of respect for each graduate, we ask that you allow the Executive Dean to read out the name of the next graduate so that everybody can hear. Finally, please note that in the event of load shedding, we have a standby generator. Please remain seated as the generator will start within a few minutes. We trust that you will enjoy the ceremony, and a hearty word of congratulations to each and every graduate on your special day. Ladies and gentlemen, we request that you join us in a moment of silence. Please be seated. Thank you.
By virtue of the powers vested in me as Chancellor of the Nelson Mandela University, I hereby constitute this congregation for the purpose of awarding qualifications. Deputy Chair of Council, Ms. Michelle Merlimbato, all members of Council here present, Vice Chancellor, Professor Sibongile Mutwa, Deputy Vice Chancellors, Executive Deans, the Registrar, the Professoriate, and all members of the University Senate, members of the Academy, and other university staff, the President of the Student Representative Council, the President of the Nelson Mandela University Alumni Association, our partners and stakeholders, including the interfaith, the faith fraternity, organized business and labor, the postgraduate students whom we are celebrating here today and on whom we shall confer degrees. Good afternoon, Molweni, goeiemiddag. I also need to acknowledge our honorary doctorates here as well. I wish to welcome you all to this joyous occasion, which is an important element of our tradition here at Nelson Mandela University. Each year we gather twice for autumn and summer graduation ceremonies to confer degrees to students across faculties and disciplines, as well as confirmation of completion of their chosen courses of study by the University Senate. This year's graduation is a special one, with the greatest number of doctoral students in the recent memory to be confirmed. In total, we shall have conferred 46 of them coming on stage by the end of the ceremony today. I would like to thank Senate as ably represented by the executive deans and the heads of department, respectively, for ensuring continued certainty to the academic pipeline. Not only are we conferring doctoral degrees, we also have master's degrees that will be conferred across the 7 faculties and over the 2 ceremonies today. In total, no less than 99 master's degrees will be confirmed by the end of today as well. And we shall have 145 degrees confirmed in this year's summer graduation. Here too, I thank the University Senate for its leadership as the legal custodian of the academic project. You are graduating at a time when there's so much uncertainty across the globe, as exemplified with the rise of conservative, right-wing movements, the very ideal of a liberal constitutional democracy is now under attack, as is the case with constitutionalism and the rule of law. We witness this in countries like the United States, where there's now pushback against the very basic ideals for which we thought there was sufficient consensus. Dr. Martin Luther King must be turning in his grave with a continued onslaught and conservative backpush against civil rights, and in particular voting rights. Another example is that of the denial of a long-held right of a woman to make decision about her own body and health. This right-wing insurgence has been evident in other parts of the globe, most notably in Argentina, Italy, and the Netherlands. The entire Brexit saga also reflects this rise of countries becoming inward-looking, and this was quite evident in the United Kingdom. So with the rise of this backlash across the globe, there's also been pushback against multilateralism and challenging the functioning and efficacy of the United Nations itself. And the very idea of globalization, which is all about interconnectivity, as nations now opt for narrow national interests that benefits themselves, and as we see in various parts of the globe, nation states within regions and regional blocks. We can look at various parts of the globe that continues to ride against this tide with some limited success. And this is much to the consternation of its competitors in the West. And I'm referring to China, because competitors have been rooting for its demise. I place this before you today because the success of China, notwithstanding some current challenges, is one compelling story that there is another prism through which we can imagine our world. And we need to look at that prism through the lens of Africa and Africans in order to impact on what and how we can deal with that change, dealing with unemployment, ongoing poverty, crises, conflict, but to name some. So the United States hegemony, whilst under fierce challenge, still continues to have a debilitating effect on the global economy, with the US Federal Reserve pattern of raising interest rates to slow down the global economy, especially economies of the South, leading to increased global inequality and poverty. This has prompted most progressive observers to conclude that these actions continue to deepen the world into stagnation. And hence I place that before you this afternoon as well. This is to serve as a warning that the globe you are now inheriting is a challenging one, and it's going to require knowledge and technical expertise. It's also going to require a certain level of social consciousness to contend with the contemporary challenges. We continue to witness with great consternation structures that lend legitimacy to racism, xenophobia, sexism, and misogyny. There does not seem to be any signs of respite around these issues, and neither do we see respite with respect to the war between the Ukraine and Russia, and these have consequences to global supply chains, especially in the respect of Brent crude oil, as well as agricultural products, including wheat, sunflower seeds, fertilizer, but to mention some. And this has necessitated a rise in global prices, with living conditions for the poor only getting worse. And that's also the blockage of certain of these commodities getting through to the developing world. So you graduate at a time when the world is witnessing one of the worst humanitarian crises in recent memory, with Israel's continuing war against the people of Palestine on the Gaza Strip and other Palestinian territories. We've also acknowledged that there has been losses of civilian life in Israel, and we decry the loss of any life, because one life lost is one life too many. I am most thankful that the university, through the chair of council, did issue a public statement that called for a permanent pause to the war and the end to the Israeli blockade, so as to make it possible for peace to return to Gaza and for civilians to receive humanitarian aid. As the Secretary General of the UN has said, Gaza has become the graveyard for children, and we are onlookers. I need to highlight this conflict, and I want to use a difficult word, genocide, given the historical ties we share with the people of Palestine. And this was echoed by our namesake when he emphatically stated, and I quote, "We know too well that our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinians," close quotes. Here at home, the triple challenge of poverty, inequality, and unemployment continues to be part of the lived reality. It's a huge, huge travesty, and I spoke about this last year, that in this very province in which we, as a university, resides, we have children dying of malnutrition, now in 2023. We know that these triple challenges have a racial and gender dynamic, with the majority of Black youth, and especially young Black women, being the hardest hit. There also seems to be no end in sight when it comes to our energy generation crises, as well as other infrastructure-related challenges, which have given rise to the current low growth and high inflation environment. As we formally induct you today, we are confident that the holistic experience here at Nelson Mandela University has prepared you adequately for the world that I've sketched, with its globally whether it relates to the continent or even to our country, South Africa. This is a world which should not only seek your technical competencies across a whole range of challenges that need mitigation. Rather, it is a world that requires a certain level of consciousness, because without consciousness, even technical competencies and know-how tend to fall short. Oftentimes, we have witnessed seasoned and technically competent professionals falling from grace as they failed the basic moral and ethical test. And that happens when there's a dearth of consciousness. The Kenyan novelist and esteemed academic Ngugi wa Thiong'o once lectured, and I quote, "Consciousness distinguishes humans from the rest of nature. In humans, death is marked by the end of consciousness. In that sense, all humans, to the extent to which that they are human, have consciousness in," close quotes. When Ngugi offered further qualification of what he was talking about, he borrowed Hegel's analogy from the phenomenology of the spirit and the science of the logic. Here he singled out the binary of being in itself and being for itself, and then further expounded, and I quote, "Being itself is mere existence, and being for itself and working towards self-preservation. Rather, it's about the existence for a purpose, an ethical purpose. Simply put, it is about the distinction about saying, I live to eat, and I eat to eat," close quotes. The mission you are being called on today, as we induct you, is that of social consciousness as you interface and engage with the world. The mission you're being called into is to espouse a professional path which is purposeful and ethical, as Ngugi rightfully exhorts us. And in so doing, you need not look any further for guidance and inspiration other than in our foundational values: excellence, integrity, Ubuntu, social justice and equality, which have been the very values that have circumscribed your day-to-day life at this institution. As we induct you, as having hit the highest level of your academic careers and into this special club, our country and the world will look towards you as the guarantors of empiricism, truth, logic, and facts in a world that increasingly has aversion for facts, logic, reason, and truth-telling. And this shall be no easy task. At times, enormous pressure will be brought to bear on you to trade facts, reason, and logic and empirical evidence for alternative facts and conspiracy theories. When that moment arises or arrives, be forever mindful of the words of Amilcar Cabral when he said, and I quote, "Hide nothing from the masses of our people. Tell no lies, expose lies wherever they are told, mask no difficulties, mistakes, failures. Claim no easy victories, close quote. So it's clearly been a tough journey, but also one that I know you have found intellectually stimulating. It's been a journey in which you extended and expanded the frontiers of knowledge. You have foregrounded new insights into those areas of inquiry for which perhaps not much has been written about before. We salute you today, and on behalf of the collective leadership at this university, I implore you, savor the moment. You have done well. Congratulations to all of you. As I conclude, I'd like to thank the members of your family and the community that has supported you. I'd like you all to stand up and look into the direction of those who have supported you. If you can please rise and thank them. Thank you. They are here today to witness the fruits of their labor, the cheerleaders, the ones who may have just been around or placed a call to indicate there's some solidarity as you traveled this hard path. I'd want to thank you, the parents, the families, the communities, the supporters, for your support and being there throughout. But as you cross this stage in a few minutes, or a little longer, allow me to remind you that today is the 10th anniversary of the burial of our liberation icon and statesman, President Nelson Mandela. As you pass this stage to be capped, please take a moment to reflect on this as we continue to harbor the hope that you will be the magnanimous, generous, and selfless people that the spirit of Nelson Mandela calls on you to be. Thank you very much, and may you enjoy the rest of the ceremony. Let me just find my word. By virtue, I have opened it here. Right. Okay. I request the Arts and Culture and Heritage Ensemble to perform some items for us at this point.
Beneath the Southern Cross, where dreams take flight, in African rhythms the spirit ignites. Mountains whispers tale of resilience and grace, sunset hues paint hope on the vast landscape's face. From the Table Mountain's grandeur to Ado's embrace, in the heart of density, diversity, unity we chase. Amidst the veld's dance and the ocean's refrain, hope blooms like proteas under the African rain. Ubuntu echoes through the winds that roam as we weave our stories, finding our way home. Amidst hardship faced, a rainbow appears, binding our souls through laughter and tears. In the pulse of Gqeberha, in the wild's untamed call, a resilient spirit rises, stands tall. South Africa's national anthem, a melody profound, harmony of hope in every heart, resounding sound.
I'd like us to give a further round of applause to the ensemble for their rendition. We shall now, honored guests, proceed with the conferring of honorary doctoral degrees. The Governing Council of the university approved the nomination of Nkedelem Uwaye Bego for the awarding of an honorary doctoral degree by the university. Honored guests, I now request the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Engineering, the Built Environment and Technology, Professor Marshall Sheldon, to present the honorary doctoral recipient.
Madam Chancellor, I have the honor of presenting Nkedelem Uwaye Bego for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Information Technology, honoris causa. I request Ms. Michelle Mbathu, a member of our council, to introduce her to the congregation.
Madam Chancellor, it gives me great pleasure to read the following commendation in respect of the honorary doctorate recipient. Born in Lagos, Nigeria, Nkedelem Uwaye Bego is a global speaker and digital transformation expert. She attended the German International School in Lagos before moving to Germany to further her studies, and in 2006 graduated with a BSc Honours in Bioinformatics from the Ludwig Maximilians University and Technical University Munich in Munich. While studying, she was an application developer for Max Planck Institute for Psychiatric Research, channel manager, head of marketing at Leafsop Nigeria Limited, and then a bioinformatics consultant and software developer for Affekix Pharmaceuticals, a position she held until December 2009. After completing her studies, she was appointed Business Development Manager for Specialized Outsourcing Nigeria Limited. In 2007, she served as the Market Evaluation Officer in the commercial section of the Austrian Embassy of Nigeria. The following year, her entrepreneurial journey began when she became the Managing Director and CEO of Future Software Resources Limited, a business initially incorporated by her father, Christopher Oweje, Nigeria's foremost IT policymaker. It was his intention for her to take the reins when she was ready in 2008. She rebranded the company, refocusing it towards web development, online solutions development, e-learning, and IT security. For Nkem, the rationale for becoming an entrepreneur was fueled by the desire to work on projects that fulfill her and the ability to create, innovate, and be part of shaping the technology ecosystem in Nigeria and Pan-Africa, creating employment and growing as a leader and visionary, making a positive contribution to the Nigerian digital space. A firm believer in mentorship, Nkem regularly volunteers for mentoring and empowerment programs where she shares her technology and digital strategy knowledge. Alongside her business and life experience, she is also the co-founder of the Bake for Change Development Foundation, an NGO focused on empowering street children through skills acquisition, vocational training and educational scholarships. In 2009, she was appointed as a board member for Stanbic IBTC Holdings, PLC, a financial service group listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange and subsidiary of Standard Bank, where she currently chairs the Board IT Committee. She serves as a board member of the Society for Corporate Governance in Nigeria, the Lagos State Research and Innovation Council, the Budget Foundation, Global Leaders USA, and Nova Fund Manager Limited. Nkedelim also served in the leadership of the Digital Economy Policy Group of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, NESGE, which is focused on influencing and advocating for policy development that creates an enabling environment. Among her numerous accolades, she received an honor award from the National Youth Service Corps in 2007, was included on the Forbes list of 10 female tech founders in Africa in 2014, a Titans of Tech Award, Nigeria in 2016, and in the same year was named as one of the 100 Lionesses of Africa. In 2019, Nkem was selected as one of the Obama Africa leaders, providing leadership to change the continent one day at a time. As well as inclusion on the list of top 100 most influential people of African descent, in 2020 she was named among the top 100 leading ladies in Africa. Her entrepreneurial background, involvement in the global and Pan-African technology landscape, and a focus on building technology ecosystem through enabling policy development, investing, education, and mentoring has had a substantial impact on our own country and the African continent as a whole. She executes her role as a technology influencer with integrity and uses her position and influence to create real change in legislation, communities, and in the lives of young people and women. Her initiatives serve for her leadership and for her dedicating her career to serving her community and more specifically, the African continent. It is an honor for Nelson Mandela University to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy honoris causa on Nkedelim Owaye Peko.
Madam Chancellor, I now request you to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Information Technology honoris causa on Nkedelim Owaye Peko.
I confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Information Technology honoris causa on Nkedelim Owaye Peko. I now give the Honorary Dr. Bego the opportunity to say a few words of acceptance.
Thank you, Madam Chancellor. I stand on all existing protocols. My name is Nkedelim Owaye Peko, and I stand before you today deeply honored and profoundly grateful to receive this honorary doctorate in information technology from this esteemed institution. As I reflect on my journey that led me here, I'm always reminded that the values that define this fine institution, values that resonate with the very core of my work and the principles that I hold dear. In the vibrant tapestry of Nigeria's technology ecosystem, I have witnessed the power of diversity in action. Our collective endeavors have thrived because we continue to embrace the richness of varied backgrounds, talents, and perspectives. Nelson Mandela University's commitment to diversity is a beacon, a reminder that true innovation springs from the harmonious interplay of different voices. Today, I extend my gratitude to this institution for championing an open society where the expression of diverse opinions is not just welcomed, but actively encouraged. Everyone that knows me knows that the pursuit of excellence has always been the driving force behind my efforts to build and to nurture Nigeria's and Africa's technology landscape. Just as Nelson Mandela University encourages the highest levels of academic, civic, and personal achievement, I have sought to contribute my part to creating an enabling environment for technology businesses and startups to thrive through mentorship, policy development, job creation, and angel investing. I have aimed for inclusive excellence, embedding equality to access and opportunity in our technology ecosystem. What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life that we lead. These are the words of the great Nelson Mandela, whom this renowned institution is named after and who I admire greatly. His vision of a socially just, democratic society finds resonance in my commitment to creating equal opportunities for all, irrespective of background, gender, and age. I strongly believe that technology can be a strategic driver for socioeconomic development when combined with investments in talent, infrastructure development, and strategic policy formulation. It also has the power to promote justice and equity. Thus, when I speak to young Africans about technology, I emphasize the importance of embracing technology and using it to harness their full potential and to contribute positively to the Africa of our dreams. I emphasize that it is crucial to remember our mutual interdependence. We're not isolated entities, but rather interconnected beings striving for a common purpose. I've witnessed firsthand the impact of societal conscious and responsible citizenship in our technology community, the true spirit of Ubuntu. May we all continue to embody the spirit of Ubuntu, working together towards a future where technology serves humanity in the most inclusive and responsible manner. I am delighted that the compassionate and caring culture that the Nelson Mandela University seeks to foster and that I have experienced over the last 2 days is not only a guiding light for us all, but inspires us to respect the dignity of others and to be human-centered and relational. As someone that is deeply involved in shaping policies and investing in the future of technology entrepreneurs, I understand the weight of responsibility that comes with it. Nelson Mandela University's commitment to the highest standards of personal honesty and exemplary moral character is a reminder that our decisions and actions carry consequences. Integrity is not just a personal choice, it is a commitment to the well-being of the entire community. As leaders, we are entrusted with the responsibility to inspire future generations, to embrace responsible stewardship and sustainability, ensuring that we conserve and protect the environment and our resources, whether they are financial, human, or infrastructural. As the African proverb goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I cannot take my leave without thanking my support system, my mama, who is here with me today, my family and friends back home, and all the amazing people who inspire me, cheer me on, keep me honest, and hold me to the highest standards. Thank you for everything that you do. I wouldn't be who I am today without you, nor would I have been able to come this far. I'm also acutely aware that this recognition is not just a celebration of my individual efforts, but a recognition of the collective endeavors of the entire technology community across the continent. To the graduates, I say this: embrace the values of this great institution, respect for diversity, excellence, social justice and equality, Ubuntu, integrity and sustainable stewardship. Let them guide you in your journey to make meaningful contributions to advancing a socially just and equal Africa. May you be the change you wish to see in our world. Once again, thank you for this profound recognition. I'm truly grateful and honored.
The Governing Council of the university approved the nomination of Narendran Jody Collipin for the awarding of an honorary doctoral degree by the university. Honored guests, I now request the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Law, Dr. Lynn Biggs, to present the honorary doctoral recipient.
Madam Chancellor, I have the honour of presenting Narendran Jyoti Kolappan for the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa. I now request Ms. Michelle Mbatho, a member of our Governing Council, to introduce him to the congregation.
Madam Chancellor, it gives me great pleasure to read the following commendation in respect of the honorary doctoral recipient. Human rights lawyer Justice Narendran Jyoti Kolappan was born on 20 May 1957 in Pretoria. After matriculating at Lodium Secondary School in 1974, he registered for a law degree at the University of Durban-Westville, later transferring to the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg. In 1978, he obtained his baccalaureus procuratus, BProc, and in 1981, his baccalaureus legum LLB. After completing his articles, Justice Kolappan was admitted as an attorney in 1982, and with only 200 Rand capital, opened his own practice. Each day, he took a bus trip into the city and was allocated 2 seats. The second seat was occupied by fellow working-class commuters who were given advice by the attorney at no cost. In the early 90s, he joined Lawyers for Human Rights, being appointed as National Projects Director and later National Director. As a human rights lawyer, he was involved in and supported lawyers in a number of high-profile cases, such as the trial of the Sharpeville 6, the Delmas treason trial, and the South African Medical and Dental Council's case against the government-employed medical practitioners who failed to appropriately diagnose and treat anti-apartheid activist Steve Biko, who died in police custody in 1977. During this time, he also served as a member of the selection panel that chose the commissioners for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. In December 1996, Justice Kolappan was appointed as a commissioner of the South African Human Rights Commission, where he spent approximately 13 years, 7 of them as chairperson. In May 2011, he was appointed as judge of the Gauteng Division of the High Court in Pretoria after having served as an acting judge in the previous year. Justice Kolappan also served as the chairperson of the South African Law Reform Commission from 2016 until October 2023. On 24 December 2021, Justice Kolappan was appointed by President Cyril Ramaphosa to the country's constitutional court. He has held various positions in organizations and institutions committed to the protection and promotion of human rights. These include the chairperson of the Legal Resources Trust, the Center for the Study of Violence and Reconciliation, the Institute for Democratic Alternatives in South Africa, IDASA, and the London-based International Human Rights Organization, Article 19. Numerous awards have been bestowed on him, including an honorary doctorate from the Durban University of Technology, a Human Rights Award from the Turquoise Harmony Institute Award, a Lifetime Achievement Award by the Congress of Business and Economics, and a Citizens Excellence Award in the field of human rights by the Executive Mayor of the City of Tshwane. For his commitment to justice and his contribution to the development of our law in the area of justice and human rights advocacy, it is an honor for Nelson Mandela University to confer the degree of Doctor of Law honoris causa on Narendran Jyoti Kolappan.
Madam Chancellor, I now request you to confer the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa, on Narendran Jyoti Kolapin.
I confer the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa, on Narendran Jyoti Kolapin. I now give Honorary Dr. Kolapin the opportunity to say a few words of acceptance.
Good afternoon and thank you. This is quite overwhelming, I must say. I thought it was quite daunting presiding over and deliberating cases in the court in which I sit. But this takes it to another level, although I must confess I could quite easily get used to it. Chancellor, Vice-Chancellor, Deputy Chair of Council, Deans of Faculties, members of the academic staff, fellow graduates, as I say, I could never in my wildest dreams imagine this was possible, given the journey of my life. But let me start by saying that from the time I arrived here last night, I found myself in an environment of celebration. The celebration was infectious. The sense of hope was inspiring, and the commitment to want to make a difference was uplifting. And it dawned on me that that was possibly so because the life of Nelson Mandela, what he stood for and what he was willing to die for, permeates the consciousness of this institution. And you feel it and you experience it. And I'm proud, even though the association is but a brief one, to be part of this institution and to accept the reciprocal obligation that comes with this doctorate. There's no such thing as a free doctorate. Not because I'm legally obliged to, but because it's the right thing to do. And so, when I recall growing up in Marabastad, in the shadow of the Union buildings, where I lived in the same street where the late Prime Minister Verwoerd was buried. So you couldn't forget the manner in which the apartheid government had treated you. And yet I lived in a community with real people, people who cared, people who loved unconditionally, people who showed solidarity and support. And so it was a bittersweet introduction to my world. On the one hand, having to face almost the wrath of a government that didn't care, but on the other, protected by the excesses of that government, by a community that cared and loved unconditionally. So I was very privileged to have grown up in that environment. And moving on, the ability to study law, to become a lawyer, to be a public interest lawyer, to work as a human rights advocate, later on as a judge, and to serve one's country, for me, resonated so powerfully with the vision of the Constitution. And in my life, I'm quite easily able to, as I'm sure many of you are as well, draw the connections and the lines between your lives and the promise of the Constitution. And the promise of the Constitution for me is real and powerful. I feel it in my life every day. I feel it in my career. I feel its redemptive power. I see its ability to remove the obstacles that apartheid placed before me and to create the space for my own personal and professional development. And in that regard, I'm reminded of the words of our esteemed first president, when in speaking at Parliament on the adoption of the Constitution, characterized it in the following terms. And he said, "The brief seconds when the majority of the honourable members quietly assented to the new basic law of the land have captured in a fleeting moment the centuries of history that the South African people have endured in search of a better future. And so it has come to pass today that South Africa undergoes her rebirth, cleansed of a horrible past, matured from a tentative beginning, and reaching out to a future with confidence." And it's that future that President Mandela described that I've been able to feel and experience. But perhaps therein lies the bigger problem. Because I live inside the Constitution. I feel its power, I feel its protection, and yet every day in my work and in where I live and in the spaces I occupy, I see millions who live outside of the Constitution. For them, life is desolate. For them, the promise of a better life is still to materialize. And let us remind ourselves that the transition from apartheid to democracy was a negotiated one. And what we were able to do is offer to people the promise of the future. And that promise lies embedded in the text of the Constitution. And unless one is able to unlock that promise and to make that promise real, then our transition is incomplete. Then, as President Mandela spoke in respect of Palestine, the freedom that we believe that we have achieved in our lifetime is incomplete. And that's a challenge of significant proportions. Because, Chancellor, today in 2023, people ask with incredulity, how is it possible for apartheid to have survived for as long as it did, when everybody rejects it universally today? And no one can provide the answer. But we know what the answer is. There were enough people who were willing to be complicit in the system of apartheid. But I want to ask a different question. In the years to come, when the generation that comes after us, and they would include my grandchildren, asks of us the question, how is it possible that this democratic society, with the resources available at its disposal, allowed poverty and inequality to have survived for so long? What will our answer be? Will our answer be that we were part of the solution? Or will our answer be that perhaps we were part of the problem? And that's the difficult challenge we must face every day. The Chancellor challenged us to reflect on the kind of consciousness we bring to bear on our existence in this democratic society. And you don't need to read the newspapers or to watch the television to imbibe that consciousness. If you are in touch with the world in which you live, you will acutely and instinctively understand precisely what that consciousness must mean. But beyond being conscious, what does it mean in terms of the actions we must then take? And I want to say to those graduating today that yes, indeed, we graduate at a critical time in the trajectory of our society. We do so at a critical time in the global forces that exist and to which the Chancellor spoke so compellingly about. And yet, we can and we must make a difference. And as a lawyer, sorry, you will have recognized that I'm a bit nervous. I've seen, and in my practice in the 80s, the destructive power of the law. It was in the name of the law, after all, that we created a hierarchy of humanity. It was in the name of the law that the law arrogantly sought to determine our very essence of humanity. Where we were born, where we lived, where we would die, and where we would be buried. It even dared to determine who we could fall in love with. And so the law was a tool in the social destruction of our society. But now there's the opportunity for the law to be a tool in the social reconstruction of the society we live in. The opportunity for the law to deliver social justice. And yet, we live in a society characterized by so much poverty and so much inequality, described by some as consistently the most unequal society in the world. And how can that be possible when we have a constitution that is consistently described as the most progressive in the world? There is a mismatch somewhere, and we must take our share of responsibility for that. And so, despite the mood of celebration, and even feeling the hope that I do, and the upliftment that I do, we must recognize that the work that lies ahead of us is enormous. That Nelson Mandela lived and died for the ideals that are part of your founding statement today. And that we owe it to ourselves and we owe it to our country to continue in that path, not because the Constitution mandates it, not because the law requires it, because ethically and morally it is the right thing to do. Finally, I want to thank the university once again for this amazing honor. I have now sat on the highest court in the country and I've received the highest honor that a university can confer. So I'm truly privileged. The people of Marabastad would never have believed it possible of a child that was born in that community. And it's a testament to our wonderful democracy, what it can do and what it can deliver. I want to acknowledge my family who are here today, my wife, my daughter, my grandchildren, the people I've worked with all my life, my parents and my in-laws who are not with me today. My mother always wanted me to be a doctor. Even after I passed the first year of law, she said to me, "These are good results, but you can be a doctor." I can now say to her that I am a doctor. So thank you very much, and I'm truly honored.
Yeah, let's get back to that quickly. I can't find that. I can't. Give me the page. We shall now, honored guests, proceed with the awarding of qualifications, and I now request the candidates to take up their positions. My watch is telling me I should be saying I request the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Law, Dr. Lynn Biggs, to present the candidates for the respective qualifications.
Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the master's degrees on the candidates who have completed their respective qualifications during the past academic year, whereafter I shall present to you the candidates receiving their qualifications in Prasentia.
I confer the master's degrees as requested.
Madam Chancellor, candidates for the degree Master of Laws coursework. Helenique Grootboom, cum laude. Apelele Mafuya. Patiswa Mbongwana. Imdrach Matabata. Ntombaseni Ndabeni. Madam Chancellor, candidate for the degree Master of Laws Research, Kudzai Nlema. Madam Chancellor, this concludes the awarding of master's degrees in the Faculty of Law.
This is engineering. I request the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Engineering, the Built Environment and Technology, Professor Marshall Sheldon, to present the candidates for the respective qualifications.
Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the master's degrees on the candidates who have completed their respective qualifications during the past academic year, whereafter I shall present to you the candidates receiving their qualifications in Prasentia.
I confer the master's degrees as requested.
Madam Chancellor, candidates for the degree Master of Engineering Research, Kapelo Pulali. Sibulele Ntakati. Kimon Silva. Muketsi Chosani. Madam Chancellor, candidates for the degree Master of Information Technology, Karian Momberg. My apologies, that was for Master of Engineering in Mechatronics. Madam Chancellor, candidates for the degree Master of Information Technology Research, Tenashi Shisema. Siamtanda Mahabeni. Daphne Mchwanazi, cum laude. Cleopas Watama. Madam Chancellor, candidates for the degree Master of Philosophy, Information Technology Governance, Lulamile Sonkasa. Madam Chancellor, candidates for the degree Master of Science in Construction Management, Research, Malik Kashi. Mukhali Ramokhopa. Madam Chancellor, candidates for the degree Master of Science in the Built Environment, coursework, Pumla Dilinga. Fezikile Duze. Hannah Margot. Mondi Manga. Buisiwe Ndungani. Asanda Ndiamboti. Nkobani Sotenyiwa. Madam Chancellor, this concludes the conferring of master's degrees in the Faculty of Engineering, the Built Environment and Technology.
I request the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Health Sciences, Professor Zukiswa Zingela, to present candidates for the respective qualifications.
Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the master degrees on the candidates who have completed their respective qualifications during the past academic year, whereafter I shall present to you the candidates receiving their qualifications in presentia.
I confer the master's degrees as requested.
Madam Chancellor, candidates for the degree Master of Arts in Clinical Psychology coursework, Thabo Leonard Lipoto. Madam Chancellor, candidates for the degree Master of Arts in Clinical Psychology. Yes, this is Vuyiswa Matsolo. Thank you. Kerisha Mudli. Madam Chancellor, candidates for the degree Master of Arts in Counseling Psychology coursework, Zimkita Nokubulela Pam. Masakane Matushe. Abongile Ngapai. Madam Chancellor, candidate for the degree Master of Science in Environmental Health Research, Sisanda Patricia Mkhwebi. Madam Chancellor, candidate for the degree Master of Arts in Psychology Research, Anshan Tablanche. Madam Chancellor, candidate for the degree Master of Nursing coursework, Sisanda Singh. Madam Chancellor, Master of Nursing Research, Alala Fukani Simta. Madam Chancellor, Master of Science, Ruben van Dierventer, cum laude. Madam Chancellor, candidate for the degree Master of Technology Environmental Health, Khanyisa Shoto. Madam Chancellor, this concludes conferring of master's degrees in the Faculty of Health Sciences.
I request the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Science, Professor Azwindini Murongo, to present candidates for the respective qualifications.
Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the master's degrees on the candidates who have completed their respective qualifications during the past academic year, whereafter I shall present to you candidates receiving their qualifications in Prince.
I confer the master's degrees as requested.
Madam Chancellor, candidate for the degree Master of Commerce, Lamla Luke, cum laude. Madam Chancellor, candidate for the degree Master of Science, Research, Aida dos Santos, cum laude. Khanyisa Mpisana. Madam Chancellor, before I introduce the candidate to you, we would like to acknowledge the late supervisor of the candidate, Dr. Sarlene Williams, who gave her input in the dissertation and even the final corrections while she was on extended sick leave and suffering severe side effects from chemotherapy. Sadly, Dr. Williams has passed away, and we honor her as supervisor. Madam Chancellor, I present to you Saida Sikote. Victoria Stockdale. Jordan van Staffel. Vamanye Vandala, cum laude. Madam Chancellor, candidate for the degree Master of Science in Nanoscience, Roribua Ramagoma. Madam Chancellor, this concludes the conferring of master's degrees in the Faculty of Science. Madam Chancellor, I now have the privilege to present to you candidates for the doctoral degrees in the Faculty of Science. I request Dr. Vuiswa Hlangoti and candidate Irene Azo Agbo to come forward, please. Madam Chancellor, I request Dr. Thangoti, the supervisor of the candidate, to present her to the congregation.
Madam Vice Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, I present Irene Adzo Agbo to the congregation with her thesis entitled Chemical Analysis and Biological Activities of Crude Extracts and Essential Oil of Selected Medicinal Plants from the Eastern Cape, South Africa, and Volta region of Ghana. This study investigated the chemistry and bioactivity of Lantana camara and Kaya grandifoliola solvent extracts. Chromatographic, spectrometric, and spectroscopic analyses were used to pursue the chemistry of these extracts. The findings revealed that the methanol extracts of each plant were non-toxic and retained high total phenolic content, which correlated positively with bioactivities such as antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial properties. The results supported the wound healing potential of the two plants, confirming their ethnomedicinal uses. Several compounds were isolated, including new compounds from both plant extracts. Although these plants belong to different families, they both possess wound healing potential as observed from the findings of this study. 2 journal articles were published in scientific and accredited journals. Thank you.
Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry on Irene Adzo Agbo.
I confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry on Irene Adzo Agbo.
I request Prof. Tom Bondman and candidate Pumlile Leon Kotiane Pondo to come forward, please. Madam Chancellor, I request Professor Bondman, the supervisor of the candidate, to present him to the congregation.
Madam Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to present Pumlile Leon Kotiani Pondo to the congregation with his thesis entitled Marine Benthic Diatom Communities Along the Coast of South Africa, a contribution to their diversity, spatial temporal variation, and ecology. This study investigated and described the spatial and temporal quantity, diversity, and distribution of marine epilithic diatoms along the coast of South Africa. The series of studies presented in this research highlighted the differences in epilithic diatom communities and the important role environmental factors play in shaping their composition. One reviewer remarked in one of the 3 manuscripts published from this thesis that it forms an excellent baseline account and the relationship with temperature could become very useful when monitoring for climate change. The study also successfully assessed the viability of a novel experimental biomonitoring method that will inform future long-term monitoring programs.
Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Botany, on Pumlile Leon Kotiane Pondo.
I confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Botany on Pumlile Leon Kotiana Pondo.
Madam Chancellor, candidate Zoleka Nontlata Patricia Philander was unable to travel to graduation today. I request you to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Zoology on Zoleka Nontlata Patricia Philander in absentia.
I confer the requisite qualification in absentia.
I request Professor Paul Watts and candidate Jade Candice Grave to come forward, please. Madam Chancellor, I request Professor Watts, on behalf of the supervisor, to present her to the congregation.
Madam Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the supervisors, Professor Mokta Dukria and Dr. Uwe Weckman, I present Jane Candice Grieve for the degree entitled Magnetotelluric and Geological Modelling of the Eastern Karoo Basin, South Africa, imaging a potential shale gas bearing horizon. With the current global search for new energy sources, shale gas has become an increasingly important resource alternative to bridge the gap from traditional energy supply to greener technologies. The purpose of this study was to image the potential shale gas bearing horizon and possible groundwater reservoirs of South Africa's Karoo Basin using magnetotellurics and produce 2D and 3D electric field distribution models. Results from these models were utilized alongside complementary geological, geophysical, and geochemical data sets to produce an integrated 3D geological model, providing a key tool to which inform future shale gas exploration activities.
Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Geology, on Jade Candice Grave.
I confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Geology on Jade Candice Grave.
I request Professor Tom Bondman and candidate Ati Nkosibonile Mfikile to come forward, please. Madam Chancellor, I request Professor Bondman, the supervisor of the candidate, to present him to the congregation.
Madam Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, I'm truly blessed to present a second candidate, Ati Nkosibonile Mfikile, to the congregation with his thesis entitled Evidence of Late Holocene Extreme Marine Wave Event Deposits along the South African coast and implications for coastal zone management. The purpose of this study was to investigate evidence of past tsunamis and related events preserved along the South African coast. This thesis presents the first geological evidence of extreme marine wave inundation, possibly by tsunami waves, dating back to 2 dominant time periods in the recent geological past. These are the mid-late Holocene, approximately 4,000 years ago, and the 1600s along the southeast and west coasts, respectively. The recurrence of such events could significantly impact the South African coast, and therefore this work argues that the coastal management agencies should strengthen their efforts towards the establishment of coastal setback lines against the risk of coastal flooding, thus mitigating the damages that these unpredictable extreme events could have on exposed coastal infrastructure and the societies that inhabit these.
Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Oceanography, on Ati Nkosibonile Mfikile.
I hereby confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Oceanography on Ati Nkosibonile Mfikile.
I request Professor Percy Hlangoti and candidate Bothwell Nyoni to come forward, please. Madam Chancellor, I request Professor Hlangoti, the supervisor of the candidate, to present him to the congregation.
Madam Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, I present Bothwell Nyoni to the congregation with his thesis entitled Pyrolysis of Algal Biomass and Coal in a Rotary Kiln Reactor, Pyrolysis Behavior, Product Distribution, and Kinetic Analysis. This research focused on converting low-grade coals, algal biomass, and their blends into liquid fuels and chemicals through chemochemical decomposition in a rotary kiln oven. Prioritizing biomass substitution for coal helps mitigate environmental impacts The investigation analyzed decomposition kinetics, product yields, and compositions using analytical instruments. Findings revealed that oils derived from coal and algae blends contain biofuel compounds like alcohols, fatty acids, esters, and polycyclic aromatic compounds. The results are vital as the world shifts towards low carbon and resource conserving green economies. The findings from this study were presented in local and international conferences and published in reputable scientific journals.
Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry on Bothwell Nyoni.
I confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy Chemistry on Bothwell Nyoni.
I request Professor Marina van der Venter and candidate Shanika Reddy to come forward, please. Madam Chancellor, I request Professor van der Venter, the supervisor of the candidate, to present her to the congregation.
Madam Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, I present Shanika Reddy to the congregation with their thesis entitled Evaluation of the Anti-Cancer Potential, Safety and Efficacy of Selected Natural Products Using Zebrafish Larvae and In Vitro Bioassays. The first aim of this study was to define working concentrations for in vitro assays and in vivo zebrafish assays and contribute to the characterization of safety and risk profiles of selected natural products. The next aim was to evaluate natural products in an in vitro type 2 diabetes mellitus model to identify their potential as antidiabetic candidates. From this study, novel data regarding the potential of rooibos, honeybush, cancerbush, and rooikrans to reduce hepatic glucose output and morphological features associated with insulin resistance was recorded, contributing to antidiabetic therapeutic potential of South African natural products.
Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Biochemistry on Shanika Reddy.
I confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy Biochemistry on Shanika Reddy.
I request Professor Jan Venter and candidate Tian Strydom to come forward, please. Madam Chancellor, I request Professor Venter, the co-supervisor of the candidate, to present him to the congregation.
Madam Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce Tian Strydom with his thesis titled Effects of Fire on Architecture and Composition of Canopy Shrubs in Subtropical Dune Thicket of the Southeastern Cape Floristic Region. The study investigated the resilience of dune thicket shrub species to varying levels of disturbance from fire and browsing to understand what drives thicket persistence amongst fire-prone fine moss vegetation. Thicket canopy species were characterized based on the architecture traits and thicket community types identified in relation to fire exposure in the landscape. The study's finding will contribute towards ecological sound management of fire and herbivory in dune thicket vegetation. Several publications have stemmed from this thesis already, and he's a proud product of the George campus, and we're very proud of him.
Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Nature Conservation on Tian Strydom.
I confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Nature Conservation on Tian Strydom.
I request candidate Honorary Strydom to come forward, please. Madam Chancellor, I request Professor Venter, the supervisor of the candidate, to present her to the congregation.
Madam Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce Honorary Strydom with her thesis assessing the effects of fish stock management on Cape gannet foraging behavior in South Africa. The study demonstrated the influence of age and sex on energy expenditure in foraging Cape gannets. It was found that females older than 17 years expended significantly more energy while foraging compared to males of that age. This possible early onset of senescence in females likely reduced their resilience to environmental change. The study also determined the influence of adult foraging effort and fisheries catch rates on chick growth rates, aiding in understanding of competition between fisheries and growing chicks. The study provided a new understanding of Cape gannet foraging behavior necessary to estimate the vulnerability to a changing marine environment. Several publications have stemmed from this thesis already. This young woman has taught me a lot of stuff about resilience and dedication and determination. I'm very proud of her.
Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Nature Conservation on Zanri Stradom.
I confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Nature Conservation on Zanri Stradom.
I request Professor Marina van der Venter and candidate Bresler Swanepoel to come forward, please. Madam Chancellor, I request Professor van der Venter, the supervisor of the candidate, to present him to the congregation.
Madam Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, I present Bresler Swanepoel to the congregation with his thesis entitled Establishment of a High-Content Neurodegenerative Disease Model Screening Platform. The aim of this study was to establish a comprehensive in vitro neuroprotective screening platform incorporating high-throughput screening using Parkinson's disease as the neurodegenerative disease of interest. The findings suggest that a scoring system which categorizes the different activities of selected natural products into distinct groups can be a useful tool to improve the translatability of in vitro results to animal models. Furthermore, the current study arguably provides the most comprehensive neuroprotective screening platform in existence.
Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Biochemistry on Bresler Swanepoel.
I confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Biochemistry on Bresler Swanepoel. Congratulations.
I request Dr. Ugeza and candidate Asane Thala to come forward, please. Madam Chancellor, I request Dr. Ugersa, the co-supervisor of the candidate, to present him to the congregation.
Madam Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great privilege and a pleasure to present the PhD candidate, Mr. Asantala, to the congregation with the thesis entitled The Effect of Annealing Condition on the Optical and the Structural Property of Titanium Dioxide Nanostructures. With the current global search for new energy source, his PhD study focuses on titanium dioxide nanostructures, which is an active material used in water splitting for green hydrogen production. Crystalline titanium dioxide, particularly its anatase and rutile phase, are a promising semiconducting materials used for water purification and renewable energy applications. For this purpose, the candidate synthesized titanium dioxide nanotubes using an anodic oxidation of titanium foil and then thermally annealed in various environments for crystallization. Using different characterization techniques, the candidate demonstrated that the stability of this material and its subsequent application depends strongly on the annealing atmosphere and the temperature. From his studies, the candidate has published 2 journal articles, 3 more are in a pipeline. The candidate also presented his findings both locally and internationally. In addition, he won the best PhD oral presentation at South African Photonist Conference material recently held in a Kruger National Park. The high number of citations from his publication and the discussion during seminars clearly indicate that the findings of his study have a significant implication and insight for the wide body of knowledge in the field and the production of clean, environmental friendly energy source. My Dean, if you allow me to take this opportunity to thank the candidate for his contribution, I wish him the best of luck in his future endeavor. Thank you.
Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Physics on Asane Tala.
I confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy Physics on Asane Tala.
I request Professor Percy Hlangoti and candidate Poti Cedric Tsipa to come forward, please. Madam Chancellor, I request Professor Hlangoti, the supervisor of the candidate, to present him to the congregation.
Madam Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, I present Poti Cedric Tsipa to the congregation with his thesis entitled The Use of Novel Chemical System Towards Improving Waste Type Pyrolysis and the Quality of Waste Type Pyrolysis Products. Waste type pyrolysis is one of the major breakthroughs in the waste type recycling sector worldwide. However, this process has limitations that cannot be avoided, and these include high energy, high polyaromatic hydrocarbons, and high sulfur content. This research investigated how a novel chemical pre-pyrolysis treatment of a waste type affected the pyrolysis temperature, quality, and quantity of the resultant products. Key findings include significantly reduced pyrolysis process temperature, which translates to lower energy costs as well as improved quality of the resultant products by virtue of obtaining reduced content of typically harmful chemical compounds in both the oil and solid residue fractions. This work produced various outcomes in the form of publications in internationally accredited scientific journals and presented in both local and international conferences.
Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry on Puti Cedric Tsipa.
I confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry on Puti Cedric Tsipa.
Madam Chancellor, candidate Yusuf Olatunji Tijani was unable to travel to graduation today. I request you to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Applied Mathematics on Yusuf Olatunji Tijani in absentia.
I confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Applied Mathematics on Yusuf Olatunji Tijani in absentia.
Madam Chancellor, this concludes the awarding of qualifications in the Faculty of Science.
I now request the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Law, Dr. Lynn Biggs, to present the candidates for the doctoral degrees.
Madam Chancellor, I have the privilege to present to you candidates for the doctoral degrees in the Faculty of Law. I request Professor Adrian van der Walt and candidate Luvuyo Livingston Bono to come forward, please. Madam Chancellor, I request Professor Adrian van der Walt, the supervisor of the candidate, to present him to the congregation.
Madam Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, I present Luvuyo Livingston Bono to the congregation with his thesis entitled A Comparative Analysis of an Essential Services System. This thesis investigates and critiques the essential services system in South Africa. The study analyzes the South African essential services system and compares it to New Zealand and the Australian systems. The candidate reaches the conclusion that although the evolution of the substantive provisions of allowing limited strikes in essential services are positive and have a more limited erosion of the constitutional right to strike, the enforcement of the system is inadequate. Proposals are made to remedy these challenges.
Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree of Doctor of Laws, Mercantile Law on Luvuyo Livingston Bono.
I confer the degree of Doctor of Laws, Mercantile Law on Luvuyo Livingston Bono.
I request candidate Nolusindiso Octavia Fortra to come forward, please. Madam Chancellor, I request Professor Adrian van der Walt, the supervisor of the candidate, to present her to the congregation.
Madam Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, I present Nolusindiso Octavia Fortra to the congregation with a thesis entitled Violent and Intractable Strikes and the Right to Strike. This study examines violent and intractable strikes in South Africa, its historical origin, and the socio-economic factors that trigger violence, while considering the legislative developments over the years to balance the right to strike and the right of employer and non-striking workers not to be exposed to criminal elements and intimidation. This thesis argues that strike violence can be averted through amendments to the Labour Relations Act for a strike which does not remain functional to collective bargaining to become unprotected, and as a very last resort to incorporate criminal sanctions which may serve as a deterrent for future misconduct by striking workers.
Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree of Doctor of Laws, Mercantile Law on Nolusindiso Octavia Fortra. Congratulations.
I confer the degree of Doctor of Laws, Mercantile Law on Nolusindiso Octavia Fortra.
I request Professor Patrick Rankin and candidate Tanya Wagner to come forward, please. Madam Chancellor, I request Professor Patrick Franken, the supervisor of the candidate, to present her to the congregation.
Madam Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, I present Tanya Wagenaar to the congregation with a thesis entitled The Integration of Marine Bioprospecting Governance Regimes. The study aimed to assess how marine bioprospecting is governed in so-called areas within national jurisdiction and areas beyond national jurisdiction, to determine how these regimes can best be integrated to strengthen the governance of marine bioprospecting for technical and scientific equity between so-called developed and developing states. The study showed that while there is general compatibility between the regimes applicable to biodiversity and to the marine environment, the intellectual property regime is seemingly incongruent with the regimes applicable to biodiversity and to the marine environment. The proposed internationally legally binding instrument to govern biodiversity in the high seas and the international seabed area represent an ideal opportunity to integrate these regimes, and the instrument needs to engage with intellectual property in a way that existing frameworks have not.
Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree of Doctor of Laws, Public Law on Tanya Wagenaar.
I confer the degree of Doctor of Laws, Public Law on Tanya Wagenaar.
Madam Chancellor, this concludes the awarding of qualifications in the Faculty of Law.
I now request the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Engineering, the Built Environment and Technology, Professor Marshall Sheldon, to present the candidates for the doctoral degrees.
Madam Chancellor, I have the privilege to present to you candidates for the doctoral degree in the Faculty of Engineering, the Built Environment and Technology. I request Professor John Smallwood and candidate Nolwazi Mandosi Bertius Kumbisa to come forward, please. Madam Chancellor, I request Professor Smallwood, the co-supervisor of the candidate, to present her to the congregation.
Madam Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, I present Nolwazi Mandosi Robertius Mbisa to the congregation with her thesis entitled Case-Based Research on the Fed-Up Model for Self-Help Housing. In South Africa, the state provides low-income housing through subsidies to construct starter homes. However, the state needs to put more effort into meeting the demand for housing in the country. This study contributed significantly to knowledge by proposing a self-help housing model. The self-help housing model has implications for how to curb the proliferation of informal settlements, especially in the central region of South Africa. This study thus demonstrates that stakeholders can improve the social impact of housing through a self-help approach.
Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy in Construction Management on Olwazi Mandosi Robertius Kumbisa.
I confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Construction Management on Nolwazi Mandosi Robertius Kumbisa.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof. I request Professor Dani Hatting and candidate Fredericus Jonk to come forward, please. Madam Chancellor, I request Professor Dani Hutton, the supervisor of the candidate, to present him to the congregation.
Madam Chancellor, Madam Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, I present Fredericus Jonk to the congregation with his thesis entitled Quantifying the Strengthening Mechanisms of Powder Alloying Additions onto the weld joint efficiency of disc laser welded aluminium sheet. This thesis evaluated the viability of using a modified laser metal deposition process to increase the joint efficiency of aluminium sheet as compared to conventional laser welding. The strengthening influence of powder alloying additions of aluminium silicon, titanium, aluminium, vanadium on the mechanical properties of laser welded sheet was investigated. The results showed a clear improvement in hardness, tensile strength, and fatigue properties of the powder alloyed welds. This work makes an important knowledge contribution towards lightweighting of laser welded components and can be considered a significant contribution towards assisting the manufacturing industry to observe strict environmental regulations for reduced CO2 emissions.
Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy in Engineering Mechanical on Fredericus Jonk.
I confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Engineering Mechanical on Fredericus Jonk. Thank you, Prof.
Madam Chancellor, candidate Jacob Mhlanga was unable to travel to the graduation today. I request you to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Construction Management on Jacob Mhlanga in absentia.
I confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Construction Management on Jacob Mhlanga in absentia.
Madam Chancellor, this concludes the awarding of qualifications in the Faculty of Engineering, the Built Environment and Technology.
I now request the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Health Sciences, Professor Zukiswa Zingile, to present the candidates for the doctoral degrees.
Madam Chancellor, I have the privilege to present to you candidates for the doctoral degrees in the Faculty of Health Sciences. I request Professor Cheryl Foxcroft and candidate Elizabeth Jean Oakes to come forward, please. Madam Chancellor, I request Professor Foxcroft, the supervisor of the candidate, to present it to the congregation.
Madam Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasant privilege to present to the congregation Elizabeth Jean Oakes with her thesis entitled Exploring University-Level Admissions Decision-Making based on Access Testing and Undergraduate Admissions Variables. The aim of this study was to explore decision-making in a university admissions context. Normally, one would do such a study by asking decision-makers how they do it. But as you know, what we think we do and what we actually do could differ. So what Elizabeth did was to combine social judgment and cognitive continuum theories to design an experiment that mirrored the real-life admissions context. She then had assessment consultants look at protocols and actually make admissions decisions while various bits of information was recorded. By doing it in this way, a baseline description was generated of how decisions were actually made using school and access test results. The results indicated the uniqueness of decision makers and the intuitive approach they adopted. Furthermore, knowledge regarding degree or diploma program decision making was linked to the consistency of the decision-making patterns, as was the importance of emphasizing access test results to enhance decision achievement. This study is the first of its kind to actually adopt this experimental methodology, and so it contributes significantly to how we go about researching decision-making more effectively. It also contributes to our understanding of admissions decision-making and how to enhance the training of decision-makers in this context and well beyond.
Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy Psychology to Elizabeth Jean Oakes.
I confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy Psychology on Elizabeth Jean Oakes. Congratulations, Doctor.
I request Professor Yasin Ali and candidate Zimkita Sibam Twalo to come forward, please. Madam Chancellor, I request Professor Ali, the supervisor of the candidate, to present her to the congregation.
Madam Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, I present Zimkita Sibam Twalo to the congregation with a thesis entitled Honoring the Dead, the Psychological Consequences of the COVID-19 Lockdown Restrictions on burial practices and rituals amongst amaXhosa from the Eastern Cape, South Africa. The COVID-19 lockdown restrictions impacted how religio-cultural rituals were carried out, with families unable to bid farewell to their loved ones in a culturally and religiously sanctioned manner. The study focused on the psychological consequences of the changes in burial practices amongst the amaXhosa. In her study, Zimkita applied the Kubler-Ross model of bereavement, and her findings demonstrated that those who buried their loved ones during the lockdown without performing the traditional burial practices and rituals did not achieve closure or reach the acceptance stage. Zimkita further identified this particular stage and added it to the Kubler-Ross model called non-acceptance. And this non-acceptance stage was marked by the participants' struggle to come to terms with the loss they experienced both psychologically and spiritually. The participants in her study were grieving the loss of a loved one, but at the same time, they were mourning the loss of the rituals and the meanings these have come to serve. Using the findings from the study, she developed the most comprehensive set of guidelines that are currently available that can be employed by mental health practitioners working with clients who have lost a loved one within similar contexts.
Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy Psychology to Zimkita Sibam Twalo.
I confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy Psychology on Zimkita Sibam Twalo.
Nice. Madam Chancellor, candidate Thelma Rose Oppelt was unable to travel to graduation today. I request you to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy Psychology on Thelma Rose Oppelt in absentia.
I confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy Psychology on Thelma Rose Oppelt in absentia.
Madam Chancellor, this concludes the awarding of qualifications in the Faculty of Health Sciences.
As we draw this graduation to its close, on behalf of the congregation, I wish to thank our graduates, parents, and other guests for their interest in the university and for their presence at this graduation ceremony. I also wish to thank our academic and administrative staff, as well as the university choir, for their respective contributions. At Nelson Mandela University, we strive to change the world. As graduates, you have risen to all that this period brought to the fore. You have demonstrated that with commitment, will, and determination, success is possible. Once again, I congratulate you on your achievement. You've made us all proud. I wish our graduates well as you journey forth to wherever the next phase of your life and your life path takes you. I trust that you will retain an identity that clearly defines you as a graduate of the Nelson Mandela University. Now I'm going to ask you to stand once again, and some of you may not enjoy this, it may just disturb your hats and the hairstyle, but if you can stand up, and decide to throw up your hats and just thank your families and everyone around you. Those who don't, it's a bit too difficult, don't worry. But for the ones at the back, just throw it up, you know. And let's give them a round of applause. Thank you, thank you. By virtue of the powers vested in me as Chancellor of the University, I now declare this congregation dissolved. I request the congregation to stand for the singing of the national anthem and to remain standing while the academic procession leaves the hall.